Advisory Board meeting. This board reviews applications and recommends funding allocations for Charleston County's annual action plan, which guides the allocation of urban entitlement funds received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. County Council approves the annual action plan. Can everybody hear me? Is it good? Okay. I am Carter McMillan, the chair of the Community Development Advisory Board. I'm going to have folks introduce themselves, starting to my right. Ms. McClellan.
To work. Michelle McClellan from the town of McClellanville.
Tasia Stevenson, Community Representative.
B.G. Flanders, Construction Representative.
Enoch Dickerson from the town of Lincolnville.
Go ahead.
Michelle Reed, Town of Mount Pleasant.
Michael Allen, a legal representative.
Mayor Green.
Mayor Green, Paula Dodd.
Mike Hemmer, Town of James Island.
Mr. Visser.
Gary Visser, Town of Sullivan's Island.
I'd also like to mention that Mark Bell, a representative from the legal department, is seated today, as well as Luella Smalls, the Director for Community Development and Revitalization. Today's meeting will include an update summary and overview from staff, followed by a discussion and vote on funding recommendations and a contingency plan for program year 2025 urban entitlement funds. This meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. In order to get a quality recording of this meeting, I remind everybody to please speak loudly and clearly into the microphone, allowing one person to speak at a time. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the advisory board meeting held on January 29th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, for meeting of minutes, please, who made the motion?
I'm sorry?
Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Who seconded?
I did. Lincolnville. Second.
Look through the minutes, any changes, additions, corrections? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Next thing on the agenda is project updates. We're going to hear a project update summary regarding previously funded urban entitlement projects by Ms. Gail Carson with Community Development and Revitalization, and an overview of the application scoring process by Nicole Manglona.
Okay,
Ms.
so,
Carson, please start.
thank you. So starting with program year 21, we have one project that is still open, and that is with Palmetto Community Action Partnership. They had some challenges with asbestos and lead-based paint mitigation. We have extended their contract through April. They have completed their program year 22 construction project, and they're now vetting it for homeownership for sale. Program year 22, Town of Ondahl. So we've reimbursed 72% of their funds, and they have submitted ERs. We anticipate those ERs further obligating the balance of the funds. Our staff has been working with the town to develop a marketing plan and to really strengthen their outreach. So we anticipate this project really coming to conclusion within its extension period. Community First Land Trust, they have completed the environmental review process, underwriting is satisfied, funding has been verified, and we anticipate this project going forward. They did complete and sell 2 houses last year, so we think they're on track to move through these funds. Also, Community First Land Trust for their home in Choteau. Once again, contract executed, funding has been verified, and they have a contractor who anticipates construction being completed within 6 months. Metanoia, this is a Choteau project, and regrettably, their contractor has been released, and they have to go back out for procurement. There were some concerns about the quality of the work. We have reimbursed 62% of their funds, and there's an extension through September. Palmetto Community Action Partnership, this is the house that was completed, and they're vetting it for home ownership. Program Year 23, ONDA, this contract ends in April. Once they complete their 22 money, we anticipate this project also moving forward because ERs have been submitted. And again, we're offering technical assistance to strengthen their outreach, their marketing, and to really revise their intake forms. Low Country Youth Services, this has been a very challenging project. It was a new sub. They did not have experience managing federal funds. We conducted a desktop audit and had concerns around eligibility. We've reached out to them. They have not been able to satisfy those concerns. We anticipate having to deobligate the balance of these funds. Program Year 23, Community First Land Trust. Let's see, the agreement is pending. They would need to sell their Program Year 22 houses to use that funds to supplement their other funding. So this project commencing will be contingent upon the sale of their other homes funded under Program Year 22. Metanoia, Baxter Street, let's see, the builder has been identified, underwriting has been satisfied, and the contract is being executed. Pastors, this is to build additional houses in Holly Grove. Underwriting has been finalized. It's been a very lengthy ER process because of the number of houses that they have proposed under the ER. But at this point, the agreement is being executed. Tri-County Weatherization, they have a number of projects they completed with a balance of $9,000. They still owe us one outcome. We don't anticipate them being able to meet the outcome with the balance remaining. We're probably going to need to roll those funds into Program Year 24 to have that outcome satisfied. Program Year 24. So while you're looking at the county funds, it's important to note that we also manage North Charleston money, North Charleston Urban Entitlement Fund. So some of these projects are stalled because they're still spending their North Charleston Program Year 23 money. Habitat, they have a North Charleston Urban Entitlement pot of money that they have not completed, so they have not yet started with their county Program Year 24 CDBG funds. Homeworks, they've submitted their ERs and eligibility. Operation Home, we've reimbursed 37% of their funds. They have repaired 3 homes. Town of Ondahl, we have not yet executed their Program Year 24 agreement because we're waiting for them to complete their Program Year 22 and 23 projects. SCACID, we have the agreement executed, and we reimbursed 15% of their funds. Increasing Hope, I apologize. They have two outcomes. No reimbursement requests submitted. Carolina Youth Development, this is a summer program, so we don't anticipate outcomes until July. Charleston area seniors, 19 seniors have been assisted, and we've reimbursed 50% of their funds. Charleston Pro Bono, we've reimbursed 36%, and they've assisted 28 LMI citizens. The Urban League, 43 LMI citizens have received some sort of fair housing assistance. No reimbursements requested. Cornerstone of Hope, this is a summer enrichment camp with outcomes not anticipated until July of '25. D. Norton, 36% reimbursed, 43 families receiving assistance. East Cooper Meals on Wheels, no outcomes have been reported. Humanities, no outcomes reported. Navigation Center, also a new subrecipient that we're offering technical assistance to because of some challenges with eligibility and reporting. Vision to Learn, 67 youth have been assisted. No reimbursement has been requested. Metanoia Appleton. So this has been a very challenging ER, I believe, because it's in a flood zone. So we're still working to have those projects cleared. Tri-County Weatherization, they have not yet identified the properties to be rehabbed. Florence Crittenden. So these are our services for homeless and unsheltered individuals. There are no outcomes yet reported. Same thing for My Sister's House. That's a domestic violence program. No outcomes reported. And for 180 Place, which is our homeless shelter, we've reimbursed 64% of their funds with 79 persons assisted. Okay. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Manglona?
Thank you. Good morning, Board. Every year we go through the scoring. This year, no different, except we put it in what we feel is a more appropriate place right around when you're going to be making your funding recommendation. So you have the scores in front of you. I'm going to talk to you very quickly at a high level of how that's happened, what that process has looked like, and then move on to the next. So all our funding streams are based on our consolidated plan, and these are the standards that we hold every application to. The different pieces of these sections varies depending on if it's a home project, if it's a CDBG project, if it's a CHOTO, in terms of documentation required. But overall, we look at the alignment with the community priorities. These priorities are determined and outlined by the consolidated plan. These priorities have also been created with the input of citizens. This is a direct result of public engagement to craft those. So alignment with community priorities, project feasibility, we view capacity or performance depending on if this is a new applicant, subrecipient, they've never been awarded, or if this is one who has a history of receiving these federal funds. An evaluation is made on how they've managed those funds. Much like you've seen our project updates, we keep up with that data and track it throughout their funding cycle. We also look at community support, meaning how much support have they demonstrated in the community through letters. And then application submission is kind of like where you write your name on your paper and you get points for having it. It's literally taking it all the way to the final line. You've submitted, you've completed, you've put forward a full application with all the documents that have been requested. So the alignment with community priorities, again, like I said, these are fully based on what has been identified in the consolidated plan. These are also available for applicants directly presented through the RFA instructions. The same actual piece of this presentation that you're seeing is what applicants saw and received if they had decided to come to one of the 4 workshops. So this has been very transparently shown to them. This is the expectation. This is where we hold every applicant throughout the urban entitlement process. So like I said, if you break it down into the different funding streams, CDBG in terms of the scoring for eligible activity prioritization, like how does it align with the consolidated plan? This is how each of those sections are weighed. Again, this is directly reflective of what the community has provided in terms of input in the crafting of the consolidated plan. So in your scoring that you'll see, the prioritization, their score will reflect how they aligned with the consolidated plan. Same thing for home. So the only difference here is that, like Gail Carson said, we do manage North Charleston funds. North Charleston has an additional category of owner-occupied rehabilitation, so that gets an additional category, but that is not applicable to Charleston County requested funded projects. And the same thing for Choteau. They have their own categorization based on the priorities that were presented. So these, again, are reflective across all of these funding streams. And HESG, same thing. This is a separate funding, and we know that this pot is pretty specific because these services are pretty tailored to what community members offer. So again, you look for these 2 main categories that they fall into. So all of the scores that you see are shown as a total percentage of the points received. So we take all the points that come from the outline that I showed you, those 5 categories. We take the the scorers do 3 sections. Here, let me back this up for you. My bad. Our scoring team scored section 1, 2, and 4. That team is outside of the staff that handles the applications, and it's outside members of Charleston County and North Charleston staff who are members of the, this year we were able to use Emerging Leaders Program. They're alumni. Those individuals were able to provide us with objective scores. They read these applications, they were provided a rubric and training, and they provided the scores you have. Staff that handles capacity and performance obviously have to be involved in who has been monitoring their performance over the course of the funding cycles. So if they haven't been funded before, then that evaluation happens in terms of what have they presented in their application. And then application submission is kind of like generated with, did they complete and submit? Did they sign their application? Did they fill out all the boxes? So that's easy. So what we do is we take all of these scores, I'm sorry, I know it said percentage, but we take all of these and we add them together. Last year we had to do a percentage because we had to offset some issues with scoring with the consolidated plan. So I apologize. But this is how we come to that number. It is based out of 100. So the number you have is based out of a full score, which would have been 100 had they maximized all of these categories. So to move into the contingency plan, and I believe that this is actually going to be under Mr. Reeder. Are you going for it? Okay. I'm going to have Luella Smalls, our director, speak more to the contingency plan. You do have a copy of it in your folders. Luella, would you like to come talk about it right now? Okay. So she'll come back and discuss that with you in a moment. Okay, Griffin.
All right, so now we'll begin the funding recommendation. Can you all? No?
I'm sorry, back to me. I want to thank Ms. Carson and Ms. Manglona for those updates. We'll begin discussing the funding recommendations for this year's urban entitlement funds. I want to emphasize that today's decisions will form the recommendations from the Community Development Advisory Board, which will be presented to the council, the county council, for approval. Griffin Reeder from the department will record the funding recommendations as we discuss funding options. We will begin with funding recommendations for the ESG category. Ms. Smalls, please describe this year's ESG projected funding cap.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Good morning, everyone. The first one we will start with is burgundy-colored page. It's the ESG. It's for individual citizens that are unsheltered. There are two categories, the rapid rehousing and shelter operations. There are just three main points that I want to make on this page. The projected amount that we expect to receive from HUD is $124,091. Please note that no more than 60% or 74,454% of the allocations can be dedicated toward shelter. Unfortunately, this year, under rapid rehousing, you will notice that there weren't any applications. Typically, Florence Critterton, my sister's house, and Formation Projects, in previous years, they did apply. This year, they did not apply. And so the funds that are left over, the difference between the 74,454, that difference we will carry forward to the next year. What I will have staff do next year is reach out to these organizations and just see if there was a reason why they didn't apply this year, or,
Probably. I got
oh, that's okay. We're okay. So before the application process starts, we'll try to reach out to these organizations just to get an idea of why. With our application process, it's a formal process. And so when we realized they had not applied, we could not go back and open up the application. We did receive a call with the request to extend the hours. It ended at, I think, 12 or 1 p.m., and someone did call and ask if we can extend it for a couple of hours. But unfortunately, it is a formal solicitation, and the hours are the hours. But we will reach out to those organizations to ensure that we get an application for next year. So one more time, that number isn't out there, but the amount that you can allocate under shelter, you can allocate no more than 60%, and that amount is $74,454.
Sorry, 74,000?
454.
454.
I'd make a motion to allocate $74,454 to 180 Place out of the ESG funds.
I second.
I'm sorry, can you state your names?
My name is Michael Allen. I'm the legal representative, and I made a motion to allocate $74,454 to the 180 Place.
Michelle Reed, I second the motion.
All right, any discussion?
Can I ask a point of clarification from Ms. Smalls?
Yes.
Should we go ahead and address the contingency plan in the event the funds differ now, or do we want to do that at the end?
It's in the agenda to discuss it at the end.
Okay.
No discussion?
to vote.
Hey, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. The next category is home CHOTO allocations. Ms. Smalls, please describe this year's home CHOTO funding caps.
Thank you. The funding cap for this year, the projected funding cap is $313,317. There are two notes that I want to make on this particular funding source. The first one is there was an application from Charleston Redevelopment Corps. They applied for owner-occupied rehab under Charleston County, but Charleston County, that isn't a program that we do. They also applied for it under the City of North Charleston. So the City of North Charleston will handle that. I did not have staff put it on this chart because we don't fund the program, but I did want to make you aware that they did apply. The other important thing for me to note is that we're under obligation from HUD to commit no less than 15%, and that amount is $62,633, and that has to go to a CHOTO. So HUD requires that 60% of the funding in this category is given to a CHOTO. And as you can tell, there's one CHOTO on here.
And what's that number again?
The amount that the minimum that we can give the CHOTO is $62,633.
Okay, so we need a motion for the CBDG funding recommendations to begin.
Home CHOTO, that's
For the
okay.
home CHOTO funding recommendations to begin the discussions.
I'll make a motion to, this is Michael Allen. I make a motion to award Metanoia their 195,000 grant request, and then the balance of the home CHOTO funds to be awarded to Tri-County Weatherization.
A second.
I got a question.
Okay. Ms.
Tri-County Weatherization Group, are they a show, does this group have a show, CHOTO?
Is that,
They did not apply for a CHOTO, no, ma'am. Only Metanoia.
so,
They get home funds.
The remaining.
they go from either, from either one, Mayor Green?
Which it would be, because they have a 91.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good.
I'm just putting out numbers so we can open the discussions.
Any
Please
discussion?
don't think I'm trying to steer the ship here.
We're in discussion, right? Just remind me, the minimum amount, so we can vote or recommend less than the minimum they request. Correct?
That's correct.
That's not, yeah, okay. Oh, sorry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, in the past though, and this is gonna be probably more relevant for the next section, the preference is to not fund less than $10,000, just from the
Right.
administrative aspects of it. It doesn't really make sense to give somebody $5,000 just with the administrative components of that.
Right.
It's not really efficient. Is that correct, Steph?
That's correct. Thank you for making that point.
Any more discussion?
In your motion, you pointed out the Metanoia. Where was the balance going?
To the Tri-County Weatherization, which is 118,317.
Yeah.
And that's only because
The scoring?
Remaining there.
it's the only one that had it's the next highest. I mean, we could conceivably give some to pastors if that feels appropriate, but it didn't look like there was some concern with pastors, at least in my review of the scoring in the history, so.
That's what I saw.
Yeah,
But
they
I
had.
would welcome some other people to chime in.
I agree. It looks like pastors had an incomplete application and some issues. So while the percent scoring below Tri-County was not overly significant, there were some issues, so I agree with what you're saying.
Could you divide it?
Could. We could. Split that 118?
Yes. Okay. Let's divide it.
Okay.
How many people did Tri-County Reservation service? Is that available?
Let me get a copy of the
How
presentation.
many people?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Should be in here somewhere.
One second, I apologize.
Tri-County had 3 outcomes last year.
Is it 3?
Yes, sir.
Has pastors,
There-
Mayor
there-
Dickerson, I just wanted to say that information is in the PowerPoint slide.
Okay.
That's where you would have seen it.
Okay.
It seems like there's some significant issues with the pastor's application.
Agree. I say we keep it.
I don't know that there's other than, I mean, they look pretty aligned. Project feasibility are 1 point separating, community support's 2 points separating, performance capacity is 1 point separating, completeness is 3 points separating. You know, as far as a score-wise, they're not that far off between Tri-County Weatherization and pastors. My concern would be that pastors, as I understand it, is for new home builds versus rehabs
Rehab.
under Tri-County Weatherization, and as we all know, doing some rehab work is gonna be far less expensive than
Go further.
building a new house, and I just don't know if it's practical to give pastors call it
50,000.
$50,000 to $60,000 to try and build a house, which is not gonna be feasible.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree.
Mr. Flanders in the construction?
I said absolutely.
All right. Can we take a vote?
All right, any more discussion? So the motion is to give Metanoia $195,000 and Tri-County Weatherization Group $118,317. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let's see.
Michelle Reed, I seconded.
So the last category is the CDBG allocations. Ms. Smalls, please describe this year's CDBG funding caps.
So as you can tell, the projected funds available is $675,736. The Wells program is under the county strategic plan. Has been deemed an important program for council, or for county council. And so the amount that we've given them in the previous years is $300,000. So that would bring our allocations for the CDBG to $375,736. There are two categories here. We have emergency housing repair and public service. With emergency housing repair, there's $249,036, and that is on the slide. And with public service, the maximum that we can give there is $126,700. Thank you, Mr. McMillan.
All right, we need a motion for the CD.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Before we do that? On the well and septic, I know in years past, that's been part of the contingency plan, and some years has been to roll some into the well and septic. Is that 300,000 well and septic to the county as an earmark, is that fixed, or could we adjust that to maybe accommodate slightly more? Or has that been directed from county council to give us 300?
No, sir, the contingency plan you can revise today.
Okay, so I guess, so if we say we don't want to give 300, we think that 300 should be reduced to, say, 250, that would be 50 more into the budgets of the allocations, or do we have to give that 300 out of the funds to county council?
You can make a recommendation of 250, yes.
Would we do that now, or would we?
So we would start with a motion, and in your motion, you would recommend the amount for the wells and then break it down further.
I'll throw out some numbers, but I would really appreciate some feedback and discussions, but this will at least get us started. I'd motion to, this is Michael Allen, I'm motioning to reduce the well and septic portion to 280, which would leave 395,736 for distribution. I'm working off the assumption that the public service projects would then be able to be increased to 146,700. If that's not correct, staff, please let me know if there's a percentage based. But if that assumption is correct, then we could award, and as my motion would include, an award to Operation Home of 175, James Island Outreach of 20, Charleston Habitat for Humanity 20, and then Increasing Hope of 34,036. And then on the total priority projects, it would be anybody over 80% and above would get their minimum with the following modifications. Charleston area senior citizens would get 10,000, and Charleston area urban league would be 21,700, and that would total 146,700.
Oh,
I'll second for discussion. Go ahead.
Carter, if I can make one correction, and I apologize, I probably
fine.
should have
Sure.
interrupted a little bit
Sure.
earlier.
My understanding is we had to put these numbers in a motion, then we can discuss it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So one piece of information is that if you make that reduction to wells and septics, it would end up going into the
Another
housing,
category?
into housing repair, not public service projects. And that's because the amount that we put in public service is just prescribed by HUD, and the max that we can put in there is 126.7.
So that's not a percentage based on the overall funding, that's just a specific number.
Specific percentage that HUD
of
has
the
given
total
us.
funds, whether it goes, okay.
Yes, yes.
Then,
So in other words, your reduction, it would go into emergency housing and not public
okay,
service.
so then I would withdraw my motion, and I'll make another motion, essentially the same thing. This is Michael Allen. I've withdrawn my motion to reduce and allocations as previously stated, and I will make a motion to award the funding based on the originally contemplated 300,000 well and septic, and then the balances would then be 175,000 for Operation Home, 20,000 for James Island Outreach, 20,000 for Charleston Habitat, 34,036 for Increasing Hope, and then for the priority projects, then it would be Anybody with an 85 or above score would get funded at their minimum amount, with the two modifications being Charleston area senior citizens getting 10,000 and Charleston Urban League getting reduced to 21,700, and then anybody with below an 85 score would not get funded. And that's just to open discussions. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
I have. Go ahead.
I was just going to second Michelle Reed for discussion.
Okay, I have a concern. Operation Home, 1,700.
Mayor Green, can I get you to,
My life?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, $175,000 to Operation Home. Why can't we give them like 150 or 125? Because they said that they will accept 36,000, but you giving them what the whole grant.
That was mainly because we have 249.36 available. And so if you give the maximum from James Island Outreach, the maximum for Habitat, and then them as the 94 score of 175, you still have 34 left to give to Increasing Hope, which is well above their minimum. We have to give this 249 to these organizations. This can't apply to any of these.
Oh, okay, priority projects.
Yeah, priority projects is a different discussion, and that's only 126,000 allocated to that. See, this number, 240, it applies to just these projects.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
So, one, I'm glad we brought the well accepted back to the original, because in Charleston County has concern about well accepted, especially in town Lincolnville. We are currently trying to root out 27 homes that currently have well accepted, and funds has been withdrawn from the state revolving fund to do this project, and we're trying to work with the county to get that done. So I'm glad 300,000 or more is needed for well accepted.
Anyone else?
Does anyone have any comments on that threshold of the 85 and below? I just want to make sure there's some discussion on that.
Can you repeat the numbers? Because I'm specifically interested in how much is going to Increasing Hope versus Habitat for Humanity.
Habitat for Humanity is 20, and then the balance just being 34, 36. If you funded, I think there's 175 and 20 for James Island Outreach, 175K for Operation Home, 20 for James Island Outreach, just because those have such high scores in there.
Yep.
We have the funds. The 270 score percentages, one, Habitat obviously is a very well-known entity. And so I recommended or suggested, for the purpose of discussion, 20 there, and then Increasing Hope at 34.
34, the
Which
remainder.
is 34, 36 to make up the balance of the
Okay.
amount that's available for those priority project and economic development projects.
Okay.
But
And then
that's
nothing.
not set in stone. You all, please.
No, I agree with that because Increasing Hope did score a little higher.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that.
Wasn't there some concerns for upwards? Pretty
Yeah.
significant concerns.
Yeah. You know, that's, I wouldn't do that. I'll go with your recommendation. Keep, Operation Home at 175,
I agree.
because they do need they do a lot for the community. Home repairs, that's not really a lot. And for the well and septic, the 300,000.
So
So that's where we are. That's where we are right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
should keep it.
Yeah. So there's a motion on the floor.
Well, should we discuss the public service projects? Does anyone please weigh in
Well-
on that?
Do we need to vote on them all together, or can we vote on these two separate?
The board can vote on them how they like, but then there is a current motion on the floor that
To
is
include,
requiring you to vote on them
Public
how the motion
service.
is stated.
okay.
Now, and then if you'd like to make an amendment to that motion, then you are welcome to do so, but the current motion on the floor is to fund at the levels that are currently being discussed.
Okay, so for public service projects, your recommendation was everybody that got 80% and above,
85,
85.
85% and above, they get their minimum
with the
And-
exception of
of
Charleston
area senior citizens, they get 10,000. And with the exception of Urban League, which
Right.
gets the remainder, which is 12,000 plus.
Yes.
Okay,
No, it's 21,700, I
21.
believe is the total.
okay.
So, up there on the screen, we need to have the 25 Charleston Area Urban League reduced to 21,700, because if you gave the minimums as you worked your way down, there'd only be 6,700 left, and to comply with the 10 minimum for Charleston Promise neighborhood and the desire of staff, I just reduced the one that's 25 down to 21,700. I know that's below the minimum, but
It is below the minimum, but I would like to see that additional amount go to some of these others that scored a little higher. Maybe up in the 90s instead of the minimum of, D. Norton, the minimum of 10, they got a 90 versus Urban League, which got 85.
We're currently at the 126,700 right now.
Right, so I'm thinking about moving that, reducing that 21.7
Okay.
to a 10 and removing those additional funds to one of these organizations that scored higher than the Urban League, such as D. Norton.
90.
Yeah,
This is,
it's in,
85.
yeah. I don't know if anybody's,
Yeah.
We only giving them
I would
10,
recommend
and they got
that the
25.
Urban League, amount be the 21,000. They do a
Remain.
lot, they do a lot of work in the community. D. Norton is good, but they are widespread.
okay.
Does everybody understand where we are right now?
I know our Charleston Pro Bono legal person is here, but I'm going to say it, they do a lot of good work, and I don't want to take money from them, but at 35, that's a big number. We could take it to 30. I don't think that's going to completely torpedo anything for them, but they've also been a long-standing
Right.
Yeah.
person, so I don't want to take it from them if y'all feel otherwise, because D. Norton does get a lot of funds elsewhere too.
Right.
So.
Okay, all right, I'm good with what the motion that's on the floor. Everybody else is?
Can I get you please to restate the motion just to make sure we have the numbers correct up on the
You want me to
screen?
do that, or you want?
Either
want
one of you,
Alan?
yes.
So, you want me to go through all of these?
And make sure that we have the correct numbers,
Urban
yes.
League is
Okay.
21.7.
Is everybody good with the numbers where they are right now?
Yes.
Okay.
That was 25, the one that said name, if you're looking for it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not sure if I can see all of them.
I'll restate it, Carter.
Go ahead.
This is Michael Allen. I'm going to restate my motion. For emergency housing repairs, priority projects under the CDBG allocations, Operation Home, recommendation of $175,000. James Island Outreach, $20,000. Charleston Habitat for Humanity, $20,000. Increasing Hope Financial Training Center, $34,036. There will be no funding for Upward. On total priority projects, for public service projects, the Charleston area senior citizens will be awarded 10, or recommended for a $10,000 award. Charleston Pro Bono, a recommended award of 35. East Cooper Community Outreach, 15. D Norton, a recommendation of 15,000 for East Cooper Community Outreach. D Norton, 10,000. Humanities Foundation, 15,000. ICNA Relief, the free clinic, 10,000. Charleston Area Urban League, 21,700.
Okay.
Charleston Promise Neighborhood of 10,000, and then everybody else on that list below would not receive funding. That is my motion for a recommendation for funding on the CDBG funds.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. As far as, Ms. Smalls, as far as y'all are concerned, are we good right now with?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. All right, well, this concludes.
I'm sorry, the contingency, I apologize. This concludes the funding recommendation part, but we do still need to do the contingency plan.
We got to do the contingency plan?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
So everybody should have the contingency plan in front of them. We also sent it last night so you could quickly review it. It was a little longer than I thought it was, and so I decided last night to send it to you so you'd have a chance to look at it. I don't know if you want to look at it. Do you need a copy?
It's in, was it in?
It's in the folders, yes.
It's in the folder?
Perfect, he has it. I can read it if you want to, just tell me how you would like me to do this. I can read it if you want to just peruse it and then make a motion. I will add, Michael, that in your question, the part about the wells and septics is at the very bottom.
So we need to read this plan into the,
I'd like to make a motion on the CDBG fund contingency plan. As it currently reads, if the HUD allocation is more than the projection, additional funding will be awarded to fund projects not yet meeting their minimum grant amount request. The minimum should be met in priority of scores. Once the minimums of all funded organizations have been met, distribute the rest balance based on a pro rata of the combined scores within their eligible section, beginning with the highest application scores, not to exceed 15% public service funding cap. Any unusable funds would then go to well and septic. I would make a motion to modify that to say that to the extent there is an overage, which is in incrementals of 10,000, that those be awarded first to Cornerstone of Hope, an award of 10,000, and then second, if there's an additional 10,000 available, to make Landmark for Families have their minimum. So because both of those entities scored 80 and above, and so I'd like to see those funded if there is the ability, if there's any contingency, and then after that, we revert back to the 24 CDAB contingency plan for CDBG funds.
I'll second that.
is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Mr. Flanders, seconded. Any discussion about that? Are y'all clear on what the motion is?
We can go back and watch
Yeah.
the report, unless the
for
board
the
wants to
other-
hear it.
And
The
just to-
board, would you like to have him repeat that?
Yeah, so just for clarification, Landmark and Cornerstone, both of which were under 85%, but did hit 80%, they would get their minimum.
Yes,
Correct?
in
Okay.
order of priority.
In order of priority.
And that's only if there's $10,000 increments
Increments,
available. You don't want to
yeah.
give one.
Right.
So if there's a $10,000 overage, then you give
Cornerstone
of Hope
first.
10. If there's 20,000 worth of overage, you'd go to Landmark. But in the event that there's 15, then you'd give Cornerstone
10.
and then the balance of the 5 would be distributed in accordance with
Right.
which in that scenario, just for example, in lack of clarification or lack of confusion, then Charleston Area Urban League would be increased to 21.7 because they're the only ones who would not have been met their minimum.
minimum,
And then
yeah.
after that, that remaining
Right.
$1,700 would be pro rata added.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
I was just
Yeah.
clarifying. what the
Clarifying,
motion was.
okay.
Is there, can we discuss the rest of the plan, or is this the, only the
I made a
for
motion
that?
just on the CDBG
Okay.
funds portion.
Do we need to do it all together?
Yes, we will need to do it all together, but he can discuss, as we're discussing, you can bring in the other parts if you
I have
want
a
to.
question on the
add.
HUD allocation then, and the process there says if all organizations get a $5,000 reduction, there's still a deficiency remaining. The process will begin again at the bottom and work back up the scores till the deficiency is met and no award is less than 5,000. Do you want that to be no award is less than 10,000 due to the granting issues that we discussed earlier, that Michael brought up earlier?
So if you're asking my preference, we would like to stay within the 10,000. It's just the work that's behind the scenes, anything less than 10,000, it's not justifiable. But if the board decides that you do want to do 10,000, that is your decision. But if you're asking my preference, 10,000 is correct.
Okay. You want to make that motion?
Make the motion then that that be
My
changed to.
motion to change to CBDG, and then we can have Mike make his motion.
Okay.
No, I mean, you're saying it has to be all done at one time,
My
right?
motion by adding,
$10,000 limit there.
I'll amend my motion to change the CDBG contingency plan to also include a change to the HUD allocation plan that,
No less than 10,000.
everybody will be reduced, but the $5,000 off of each down to their minimum, starting with the lowest until the deficiency is exhausted. If all organizations get a $5,000 reduction and there's, to the ones that are applicable, and there's still deficiency, the process will then begin at the bottom, and groups that will be removed from funding if their level is below than 10,000.
10,000. Yeah. I'll second that amendment.
So does everybody understand where we are?
Yes.
Are you good with this, Mr. Bell?
And unless there's further discussion from the board.
So we need to vote on the amendment.
So where are we right now? We've got the motion on the floor, it's been seconded for the contingency plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. So that covers the entire contingency plan, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
I'll make a quick motion to the extent that it did not cover the rest of the contingency plan, that the remaining portions of the non-discussed contingency plan would be adopted.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. All right. Okay, this concludes the approval of the program year funding recommendation meeting. We want to thank all the organizations for taking the time to respond to this year's RFA. Also want to thank the board for all of their dedication to the citizens of Charleston County, their hard work, and also to the staff for all of their hard work, and Mr. Bell for being here. A public hearing regarding today's recommendations is scheduled for April 8th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the council chambers. Additionally, the next formal meeting of this board will be held in fall 2025 with a specific date to be announced once it is finalized. If no further business exists, this Community Development Advisory Board meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Is that one done?
Okay.